Hello there, everybody, and a very happy Thursday to you today. I hope everyone is doing well, and I look forward to hanging out, spending some time with you guys tonight on this Alta New YouTube Live. My name is Sara Newman, and I'm just really happy to be spending some crafting time with you this evening. It's evening here in Hamburg, Germany, so if you are someplace where it is morning, then a very good morning to you or afternoon. So thank you so much for joining. We have the lovely Orem who is behind the badge today, and she is going to be sharing links to the products that I'm going to be working with. So if you have questions and I don't see the comments as we're going, then Orem can also always help in as well. So we'll make sure that if you have any questions about the products, that you will be able to see what we are playing with today. Hi, Sue. It's nice to see you. Always great to see our friend Sue. And welcome back to all of the friends who have joined us week after week after week. And also a big welcome to those who are new. So I see that Jean has just jumped in, which is great to see you. I love seeing where people are coming from. So it's great to see friends joining from the UK, from the US, wherever you happen to be. So thank you so much. Oh, Ziamara's glad that she has internet again. Yeah, I'm glad you do too. That's a hard thing to be living without these days. And Sue's glad to be back after the storm. Kathleen is joining us from Illinois. Yeah, we actually are having our summer weather here in Hamburg. It's hot and sunny today for the first day of school. So I'm not sure that the kids were enjoying that, but fingers crossed that we will keep going with our school year. We will see. Arkansas and Schenectady, New York, and India. This is fantastic. I love seeing such an international crew. Hello from Sweden. We're going to talk about using stamp sets and finding some stamp sets that we might not have remembered that we have in our stash, which brings me to our stamps for today. So if you've joined us for these lives before, you probably know generally what I like to do is show you the products that we're working with, and then I'm going to tilt down my camera and we'll get right into the demonstrating. But I want to show you, first of all, this is the first stamp set that we're going to be playing with. This is the Watercolor Wonders Set. And I have had this set for 5 years. And I know because I remember exactly when I got it. I have probably used it once or twice before using it for tonight's session. Last weekend, I thought I would organize some of my stamps. And I don't know if you've ever done this before where you think that'll take, 20 minutes. I don't know why I thought that. And then like later that night, I just had stuff everywhere. Nothing was organized, but I did find a lot of stamps that I had kind of forgotten that I had. And this was one of them. So this is a layering stamp set. Now, with many of the Altenew layering sets, you need to be a little precise, which is why they always give you the layering guidelines on the back. With the Watercolor Wonders, this is a set that you can be precise if you really want to be matching things up and lining them up perfectly. But because it is a watercolor effect and you can see the finished examples of what the flowers will look like, you kind of don't have to be that precise. So there's a lot of leeway here. You can, in fact, you can be pretty free and easy with these if you want to, or you can be very precise. We're going to do it both ways, but I'm leaning more toward the free and easy sort of method today. There are 10 flowers on here. You can see them on here. I've got mine labeled. Yours will not have 1, 2, 3 on here. This is just for me to keep my brain organized, because you'll notice that when you're looking at the set, you can tell some of them are flowers, like that's obviously a flower, that's a flower, that is a flower, but a little trickier to tell. For me, it can be a little hard, especially at the end of a long day, to tell what goes with what, even though there is a circle drawn around to kind of show you the groupings. But when I'm flipping back and forth to my layering guide and then back to my stamp set, I just found it easier if I labeled like this is flower number one, just to keep it easier in my mind. So if that helps you, then that might be a good hack. The other set that I'm going to be working with today, because our Watercolor Wonders doesn't have words, so of course we need words. I need words for my stamping. And the gradient stripes has this big, beautiful, stripy background. Now this is about 6 inches tall, so this can be a really great card background or partial background. But what I love especially are the words down here. So you have a nice big word happy, and then you also have lots of companion words that you can use around this word if you want to. So you can have it say happy, and you can work in sending happy thoughts, or you are my happy, or happy everything, happy anniversary, happy birthday. And really fun little cursive font, and it balances so nicely with the sans serif font. So this is a lot of fun to work with as well. So we're going to be combining those two together. The inks, as for the inks that I'm going to be working with, because I'm going to be using some water in my trusty water mister bottle to create some additional watercolor effects, I want to be sure to use dyed ink. And because I'm going to be working with some layering stamps, it's always nice to have multiple shades of a color. So the colors that I'm using today, you don't have to use these ones. Of course, any of your dye inks will work, but those are the little cubes are the ones that I'm going to be using, so the little squares. And they come in a set of 4, which will give you an arrangement of colors. But you can also, of course, use your larger full-size pads. And then also, can't stamp without my obsidian black. So this is what I'm going to be using for the words and for some of the flower centers. So other than that, everything else is pretty much whatever you've got in your stash will do. Oh, the other thing I want to bring up, I found that with this kind of stamping, if you are working on nice smooth cardstock, you want to have something that will accept water if you're going to do some misting, like I'll show you today. You can use watercolor cardstock for this as well, but I found that I got nicer images if I was using a nice sturdy cardstock instead of my kind of inexpensive, go-to cardstock. So that is what we're going to be playing with today. Before I tilt down the camera, I just want to remind you that if you want to be in for a $15 gift certificate, then do share tonight's video while we're live. And you can just post down in the comments below, gesturing down there, and let us know that you shared. Let us know how you shared, and then you can be in for the running for a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store, which would be a lot of fun to spend. Great way to spend your Friday then, right? Okay, so I'm going to tilt down the camera. I'm going to grab my MISTI. I will be working with a stamp positioner. If you have one, that's great. If you don't worry about it. As I mentioned, we're going to be pretty free and easy with the layering on these stamps. So you can use a block. It doesn't have to be totally precise. Okay, so I'm going to grab my MISTI, a piece of cardstock, and I'm going to tilt down the camera, and we can get into the demonstration. Oops, sorry about that. There we go. Okay, I think you can see my work surface. One other little tip that I want to bring up. Sometimes when I'm choosing my inks to do my layering stamping with, I find that it really helps to have a swatch sheet. This is one that I had my 9-year-old daughter help me with because I was looking for something for her to do, frankly. So this was something helpful that she could do. And basically, I just wrote down all of the names of all of my little cube dies, and then she squashed the ink pad on the appropriate place. But what's really nice is this can give you a sense of what's going to be a lighter shade and what can go darker and what colors you might want to use together. So this is maybe another little tip that you can do. If you have a 9-year-old around, I'll tell you, they're happy to help sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to pop down my cardstock here, And I'm going to be working with these three colors. So I have the fresh lemon, I have maple yellow. I'm not going to be using dark chocolate. I'm going to be using warm sunshine. So these three colors that are all going to be working pretty much together. Okay, so I'm going to set those aside. And I'm going to work with the largest flower. And I like to do that just because it's a nice big size and you can see it a little more easily, I think, when we're doing our video. So something a little bit easier to see rather than one of those little guys. So I'm just going to take off the stamp and pop it down onto my piece of cardstock. And I think I saw a question that was coming through about the black ink. This is the black ink that I'm going to be using for my flower centers. And this is the pigment ink, the obsidian pigment ink. Pigment ink is different than a dye-based ink. This is going to react with water, which is going to give us some beautiful watercolor effects. The pigment ink is going to be nice and crisp and dark, but it will not work well with water because it's oil-based. And oil and water, of course, as we know, don't work. So don't work together. So the pigment ink is what I use a lot for my word stamping and will be for the inner portions of my flowers, the flower centers. Okay, so I'm going to start with the fresh lemon, and I'm just going to ink up my flower. Give a nice thorough inking and close this up. And there we go. So you've got the basic shape of a flower. Nice flower shape. You could add the flower center in there and call it good. But instead, I'm going to just quickly clean off my flower stamp, pop this back on here, and then I'm going to grab the other portions of my flower. So you can see here that there is, I think you can see that there's a black line going around here. So I know that this, and this little, looks like a bear paw print, this will all go together. So for the next one, I'm going to grab this little section here, and I'm going to line this up. I'm going to line up the tip over here. I'm going to get the fuzz off of this first. Line up the tip over here and down here. And again, don't be too terribly concerned about lining things up perfectly, especially as we start bringing the water into the mix here. So I've got that down. Now the next layer I'm going to do in maple yellow. So this is a darker color, just tapping that on. And press that down. So you can see immediately I've got some nice shading on there. Now you can see also where I've aligned this tip here, and then I've got this portion here, and that aligns with the center of the flower. If things get off a little bit, really don't worry. And once we start getting into a bit more freestyle effect, you'll see what I mean. Okay, and then the third portion of my flower is this. So you can see it really is a little bit tricky to tell what goes where when you're just pulling these off. Okay, so I'm going to align this like so. I think I've got that in the right place. And this one I'm going to do with the warm sunshine. Thank you to everybody who's been sharing, by the way. We appreciate it. Okay, and then I'll pop this down. So there you can see even more of the layers on there. Just really easy. If anything goes off by a little bit or a lot, it's really not a big deal. And then for the very center piece, I'm going to use this little element here. That's the flower center. It looks like a paw print to me for some reason. Now you can use your MISTI for this. I tend to use the smaller 2" by 3" acrylic blocks for this. I just find that it's a little bit easier for me to get things lined up. So for this, you know, I've got my flower as it is so far. I think you can tell it's a flower, but wait until you see when I ink this up, and I'm using the pigment ink for this one. When I add this, let's see, I'm going to pop it down like so. Once you get the center into the flower, it all starts to kind of come together. Now you'll notice as well on the example, or on the layering guide, that the finished flower, the centers are never like really perfectly in the center, and I love that. I love that there's a real looseness to it, so it doesn't have to be totally precise, but you can get the gist of it as well. Okay, so I'm going to just clean off my flower center, and then what I can do is choose a sentiment. I think this looks really nice the way it is, but of course it's always nice to add a little sentiment down at the bottom, and this is where the gradient stripes will come in. So I'm going to keep things nice and simple, and I'm going to take off the one that says for you. Something really easy. And again, I'm just going to use my block for this. And once again, that pigment ink. Now you don't have to use the pigment ink for this. I really find though that it is one of my favorites for getting really nice, precise images, especially when it comes to detail. So then you have a little for you on there, and I just really like how easy that is, and I love the contrast, of course, of the black with the nice soft yellows. And once I have that done, I can turn it into a quick and easy card like this. So in this case, I just mounted this up onto some craft cardstock, added a little bit of gingham ribbon, and put it up onto foam tape onto a square card. So pretty quick, pretty easy, and I just really love that fresh sort of sunshiny effect of that pretty flower. So that is our first card, and that's kind of showing you how to use the stamp set the way it's in air quotes supposed to be used. Now let's take a look at another way to use it in a way that does not require much alignment at all. This is where we're going to get a little bit more freestyle, if you will. Okay, and I'm going to take the same flower stamp that we were working with before, and I'm going to use this again because I always like to show how things can be used in a different way. And maybe I'll turn this around a little bit too, because that flower is so abstract. You can really tilt it around in a couple of different ways, get some different looks. Okay, so I'm going to pop this down. And for this one, I'm going to use my fresh lemon again. And I'm also going to use coral berry. So rather than going for a tone-on-tone look, I want some colors that will complement each other and that will work nicely when I get to blending them with water. So for this, I also need my trusty, very grubby looking spritzer bottle of water. And I also need to have a rag or a cloth or something on hand too. So first, I'm going to start with my lightest color, which is the fresh lemon. And I'm just going to ink this up. Now, the next step is going to be adding my coral berry. So I want to work pretty quickly. And I'm just going to focus the coral berry kind of more in the center of the flower. So not covering it completely. And then what I'll do is grab my mister bottle, scoot this over a little bit, you can see it a bit better. And I'm going to mist it. I'm going to give it a couple of mists. You don't want to flood it, but you want to have enough water on there so that the colors are blending. And then I'm going to tap this down. I'm going to be pretty gentle. I'm not squashing it or anything. I'm just going to gently tap this down and then lift. And you can see where I get a beautiful watercolor effect. So not only do I have that lovely lemon, I also have the coral berry, and I have this area in here where it's just blending really nicely. Now, you know it's a flower because we're working with a flower set, but at this point it doesn't really look quite so much maybe like a flower. So instead we're going to add some leaves to it. Now you have lots of leaf layering options in here. You also have some standalone leaves, like this little guy down here doesn't have a layering partner, if you will, but you have lots of possibilities for doing some leaves on here too. So I'm going to take, let's see, I'm going to grab this leaf here, this leaf set. They are not going to align perfectly, which is fine. That's still going to look really good no matter what. So we'll take that one. Let's see, I've got one up here in the corner, and that can go, let's see, let's put that one down here, and maybe another little one over. Oh, actually, let's put this one here and create some balance over here too. There we go. So I've got my leaf groupings, and I need to figure out my color. So for the leaves, I really like using bamboo, which is a nice bright, cheerful green. And I also like to use olive, which is a shade darker and a little bit stronger. So I'm going to start first with the bamboo. I'm going to close this up here and ink up the leaves with the bamboo. And then just like we did before, I'm going to take the olive and just add like little swipes of it. Again, not being too precise. I'm going to give a couple of mists of water there and then pop this down. And it's starting to look a little bit more like a flower with the addition of those leaves. So I'm going to clean this up. And the other thing to keep in mind too, when you're working with a MISTI and you've got this nice plastic area here, when you mist the MISTI with water, do be sure that you're drying off this area too. Otherwise, when you go to put your stamps on, they can slide around and it makes it difficult to align things properly. So while this is drying a little bit, I'm going to pop these back in place. I have to find them. There's so many stamps on this set, which is great, but it does mean that you have to take a minute or two to locate where they go. Okay, so now I have this part. It is pretty much dry. The amount of blurriness that you get to your image will depend, of course, on how much water you're using. Now you may notice over here too that I've got some extra little splats of water, and you can find that on a lot of watercolor paintings as well. It's just, you know, kind of where the water will go, where it drips a little bit. So I'm going to take the dark chocolate, and I'm going to put just a little bit on my craft mat and add a bit of water next to it. And I'm going to take a water brush. You can use any kind of brush. I like to use a water brush for this. Maybe a bit more water. And then just kind of add some more spattering around here. And the dark chocolate will create a really nice soft look. So it's not quite as stark as the black. And of course, the dye ink makes that really easy. So then I have a little bit more of that texture on there. Now again, I need that flower center to help it look a little bit more like a flower. And so I'm going to take my flower center, and again with the dark chocolate, let me find that, ink that up until I have something on here. So needs to be cleaned a little bit better, Sarah. There we go. A bit more with the dark chocolate. And then again, just a stamped center on there. Now you can see where it starts to look a lot more like a flower. But again, you're able to take advantage of that really soft watercolor effect and even create some of your own watercoloring on there. Simple and easy to do. And then if you want, you can always do some overstamping, which is what I've done on this part here. So I took that very same technique and then just overstamped the word happy. And I use the obsidian black for the happy, and it just says happy everything on there. And I didn't do much more to the card. I just mounted it up onto my card blank, and I used some foam tape. I like to have a little bit of dimension, especially on really quick and easy cards like this. But you could definitely add ribbon, you could add some sequins or whatever you happen to have in your stash. But I think it also looks pretty good just the way it is. So that is our second card. And I really like the option of being able to create something that is layered and a little bit more precise, and something that is really pretty, you know, goes with the flow, really quick and easy. And again, you can do this in just about any color combination you want to. All right, let's move on to another example. Let's create a little bit of a scene with our flower stamps. And this is really where I find things get to be a lot of fun. And you can start to play with some of your stamp images and create more of an all-over effect, because of course you've got lots and lots of flowers to choose from on here. So again, I'm going to go with our big flower. I'm going to pop this one down. Let's see. We'll put this one down like so. Move over my magnets a little bit. And then I'm also going to be working with this kind of medium-sized flower over here. This is, in my mind, this is flower number 2. You can label it how you would like yours to be. That helps to organize. And I'm going to put this one over here. Now these ones I'm going to do in purples. I like to work in purples because purple is not a color that I use very often, so I always find it kind of fun to challenge myself sometimes. So in this case, I'm going to be working with 3 beautiful purple colors. I have the soft lilac, lavender fields, and deep iris. So these are some of the older cubes, so I think it may be a little bit trickier to see the color, but soft lilac is the lightest, then the lavender fields is the middle, and deep iris is the darkest color. So I'm going to start out with the soft lilac. And again, just ink this up. It's a really light color. I'm going to mist this again, not quite as heavily as I did our last project, but a couple of spritzes. And stamp this down. And you can see it's quite faint, a little bit blobby. If you want to, you can do a second go if you want something a little bit darker. Sometimes with light colors, I like to do a second go. And again, I'm misting it a second time as well. So now you can see a little bit better. Still vaguely flower shaped, but I think you can get the gist. Okay, and I'll pop these back onto my liner sheet. Let's see. Now I can do my second layers, since I'm going to do both of those in lavender fields. I'm going to do that at the same time, so that's not a problem. So I'm going to take from the smaller one, I'm going to pop this down. And from the larger one, again, grab this middle portion and line this up about where it goes. And this time, I'm really not being very careful. I'm really not being very precise at all. Basically, for the messier looks, I've found that you kind of can't go wrong what I do like to do is leave some white in the center showing so that when I'm actually putting my images down, they can sort of go anywhere except covering the center of my flower. That's just sort of what I found helped me when I was lining things up. So that's with the Lavender Fields. Pop this down, again misting it. You can see once again soft and pretty. And I'll set these back into the sheet. And then my third section, so this is the small one. And pop that down here. And grab the third layer of my big stamp. And pop this over here. Being very quick with it, quick and decisive. Just gonna set it down, I'm not gonna overthink it. Maybe I'm the only stamper who does that. Sometimes I overthink and I line it up and then it's not quite perfect, so I spend more time lining things up than I do actually stamping them. Sometimes I think I could just let that go. And this is the watercolor set that allows you to do it. So the last layer was with Deep Iris. And there we've got our second go. Now I notice that this is a little bit stark, so I'm going to add another bit of water and then just go back and add that on. Okay, so there I've got my purple flowers that sort of look like flowers at this point. Again, when we start using the leaves in here, then we start, I think, to make the flowers look a little bit more like flowers. Okay, I'm going to put this back where it goes and this back where it goes. So again, with our leaves, we're going to go pretty random. I'm just going to move the magnets around. I'm going to set that leaf down and let's see, grab this little guy down here at the bottom. That's a good one. And again, there's not like a certain place where they will match up, so you don't have to worry too much about getting things perfectly nested in. And let's see, I'm going to take also, let's take this little one too. I'm going to do a couple of rounds with the green. So I've got 4 leaf collections on here right now. And again, I'm going to be using the bamboo for this, and I'm also going to have the olive on hand. This will give me a nice two-tone effect. And misting. And stamping. So there we start to see a little bit more of our flowers. Okay, and then let's see, maybe I'll do this. I like this leaf especially. I think this one's really useful. So I'll pop this one down here, and then another one over here. And like so. I'll leave this one off for now. And then for these leaves, I'm going to come in with the olive. So again, the olive is a darker color than that beautiful bamboo, but it's going to give us some nice variety. Okay, and there we go. So it's a really easy, and I think you can see pretty foolproof way to get a beautiful background. Okay, I'm going to get these back in their place. While I'm letting this dry, And this little guy goes here. And then the next thing I want to do here is, again, make sure that this is pretty much dry. If you want to, you can zap it with a heat tool and really make sure, because this is a little bit wet in here, but I think it will still work nicely when I'm adding my flower centers. So again, my flower center for the big flower, I'll do with my black. And let's see, I'm going to turn that this way. And you can notice, I mean, just with the simple addition of that flower center, it really does turn it into a much more recognizable flower. And you can see the difference between the two of those. Now let me grab the flower center for our smaller flower. And the flower centers, by the way, I use them interchangeably sometimes. So just because this one is smaller and meant for the smaller flower doesn't mean you can't use it for the larger flower. There we go. And get the lid back on here before I put my hand in it. And there you can see you've got a really easy watercolor effect. Now you've got some room down here, and this is where I put the message on my card, and I'll show you the finished card in a second. But you also have the option to, and this is just a die cut. This is the Friend Sentiment die cut from Altenew. I just happen to have it on my desk. But you could simply pop something like that down. You could also use a lot of the words that are on the Gradient Stripes collection in combination with that word friend. So it could be like, hello friend, happy birthday friend, you know, sending happy wishes friend. You can really work a lot of those sentiments in together if you wanted to. So the card that I made with this set is this one here. And again, just a little bit of ribbon. I stamped the For You on a separate strip of cardstock and then popped that down on some foam tape and then just layer that on top. And again, glued this onto the front of my blank card. So keep in mind, you can still add lots more to the card if you want to, or you can keep it, you know, pretty clean and simple if you want to as well. That's also a possibility. So you can see where there's a lot of options. So just take a look. This one flower that we've used now in 3 really different ways. I love it. I love the possibilities. Makes me think, why did I have this stamp set in the back for so long? It's so useful. This is what happens when you clean your stamping area. Found lots of things. Okay, so why don't we do one more card, and then I'm going to show you a couple of other examples, because once I got going with this, I was having a lot of fun. So this next one I'm going to do is again another scene. I'm going to use a couple of different flowers though, so that you can see some of the other ones. And now I get to use my very happy making blue colors. So I'm going to be working with the Aqualicious, Teal Cave, and Galactic Stream. Now the Aqualicious and the Teal Cave are both a teal aqua color. The Galactic Stream is definitely a blue. So you can mix and match across the set sometimes, so don't forget that as well. So these two will come together, the two aquas, and then the Galactic Stream I think comes in another blue set. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to go ahead and use that number 2 flower again, kind of smaller one. Pop this here, and then I'm going to use this one here because this one I think is really a fun one. It's only a 2-layer set, so there's just the main flower and then one accent part. And this is one that I had to try it out, and I thought, is this really going to look like a flower? And it did, of course, because it's Altenew. Okay, tuck that down. And again, I'm just going to be using my water mister for this. I'm going to start with the Aqualicious, which is the lightest of those colors. And ink this up. The Aqualicious is probably it's definitely one of my favorite ink colors from Altenew. I was going to say it's definitely my favorite, but there are a lot of contenders. It's definitely at the very top though. Okay, so I'm going to stamp this down, and I'm going to stamp this one down again. And you can see that I've got a flower shape. This looks completely unidentifiable. I'm going to add a little bit more water so I can get this guy a little bit more fluid. Okay, and then clean that up. And I'm going to set these aside and really make sure that I get this part dry. And then I'll just keep working with the rest of my section. So for this one, this is going to be kind of a funny one. Sort of goes off to the side a little bit, overlapping. And then for this one here, of course, I've got my other portion. It's going to go right here. That'll line up more or less. And this layer I'm going to do in Teal Cave, so the darker of the colors. Really rich and pretty. And again, giving that a good mist. And there you can see how pretty that is. And now for my third layer. This flower only has 2 layers. This one has, of course, another layer. So I'm going to add that. And that one I will do in Galactic Stream. And try this. And line this one up. More or less. Let's see, how does this one go? It goes this way. Does it go this way? Does it go this way? Let me see. No, I don't think it does. Okay, here we go. So that's going to be with Galactic Stream. And then I want to add a couple of other flowers in there with Galactic Stream as well. So I'm just going to grab this little one, which is also kind of a 1-layer flower. Pop that down. And then another one. Let's see. Do I want to do another one? I think I will do that one twice. Okay. So close this up. Add my Galactic Stream, which is a really nice, rich, dark blue. Oops, let me make sure I've got that on here. Misting again. And pop that down. I love how this turned out. This one is just going to require another little dot of color. I'm going to take that and pop it over on the other side here. Just going to drop that down anywhere. And again with the Galactic Stream and the misting. And there you can see. Now the colors are going to change a little bit as they dry. Again, just depending on how much water you're using. So do make sure that you give that a chance to dry properly before you do anything else with the flowers themselves. So for the rest, again, let's grab some of our leaves. And this time I'm going to get really leafy. I'm going to add a lot of leaves on here. And I'm not going to be too worried about the layering. Many of the leaves can be layered, as I mentioned before. Don't have to though. Let's see, let's do this. No, let's not do that one. Let's do some of the smaller ones. Okay. And again, I'm just going to be using the same colors that I did before, the parrot and the olive. Let's start over here. And then let's put something down here too. And this is the beauty of one of the beauties of the MISTI too, is that you can do multiple stamps in one go. Okay, so this is the bamboo that I'm working with. I think I said parrot earlier. It's bamboo. Parrot is another really beautiful color. And one I use a lot too, so get them mixed up sometimes. So there we go, starting to add some more color on here. And let's put this one down here. We'll move this one over here. Some leaves over here and here. Oops. Get that one back in place. And this one I will do in bamboo. It's too wet for it to stick. Okay, this one's going to go here. And this one I had over here. Okay. There we go. So this one is olive. And again, a little bit of misting. Forgot this guy. And again, the more water you use, the blurrier your image will be. So you can experiment with that and kind of see what you like, see what results you want. I'm going to keep going with these just for a little bit longer. One more go. Clean that off with the water. And again, as much or as little as you want to do. This is really the fun part, I think. And you can see that I'm not putting a whole lot of thought into this. So you can use much or as little planning as you want to. So I'm using both of those green colors that time. And here we go. And then I think I've got enough of those for right now. I'm going to close that up and set it aside. And let me grab the flower center and my black ink. And we'll just use the same flower center for these two. Pop those down there. Now these two flowers have a smaller flower center. They just have a little dot. It's the same design. Let's see. And I have to find that on here. Here it is. It's really just literally a little dot. And I'll pop that down like so. So quick and easy, really beautiful, especially with those colors and the color combinations. I think you can get so many different gorgeous looks. Now again, what you could do, let me grab my friend die cut here. You could just pop that down and have a really nice sentiment. So don't forget, you can mix and match in some of your word dies as well. For this one though, I'm going to try and handle this carefully because I know I've got blue hands. For this one, I just decided to, again, overstamp with the happy birthday. So before it was happy everything, now it's happy birthday, and just stamp that directly on there. So when I'm planning out my design, then I want to make sure that I've got some blank area in here so that I don't have words conflicting like with the black centers of any of my flowers in there. So again, quick, easy, and I think it's just a really pretty way to get some fun watercolor. And I have one last little technique to show you, and this is not with the flowers. So I'm moving over to our gradient dies, gradient stripes stamp, because we've been working a lot with the words down here, but I haven't said anything about this really cool striped background on here. And this is just a lot of fun. It's a great design to have on hand, and one that I think you can use for lots of different things. As I mentioned, it's really big. It's about 5 inches tall. And so it can be a great card front pattern design. Now, it's a little bit tricky to get it into the MISTI, especially in the MISTI size that I have, especially if you want to do just like a portion of your card piece. Maybe you want it only to go to the half. So here's a quick little technique for you. You don't have to use a block with this. If you have a giant block, that'll work. If you have a bigger MISTI, that'll work too. But if you are ever in a pinch, don't forget you can also use a lot of your stamps, your larger stamps, without a block. So I'm going to take the olive green, and I'm inking this up. I'm just kind of rubbing this on here, going along with the flow of the stripes. Now this is a pretty crisp design, but I'm going to give it a little bit of a watercolor look. I'm going to take this. Now I could flip it over and put it onto my card, but in this case I'm going to take the card and then just drop it on here. Smooth that down. If you want, you can take your block and use that to kind of make sure that all areas get in contact, and then you can create a striped effect. So I think this would be really fun if you added some of the flowers up at the top. You can also add some of your sentiments. Of course, you can have it go either way. Now, I will mention that the Watercolor Wonders does have a die set. I don't happen to have it, so I wasn't able to show it to you. But if you wanted to, I think it would be really cool to stamp some of the watercolor flowers, die cut them, and then add them in and around that beautiful stamped, striped background. So just another little quick technique. Don't forget, you can always use your bigger stamps without a block if you need to. So if you're ever in a pinch. Okay, so that is going to wrap it up for us. I'm going to tilt up the camera again. There we go. Hello again. And to say a thank you to you. And also I'm going to whiz through the cards one more time and show you also the stamp sets one more time too. If you jumped in late and didn't see my show and tell at the beginning, then I will show you now. So got a big pile of lots of things on my desk, but let's take another quick run through our projects. So I'm going to try and do things carefully with my blue hands. So here is our Watercolor Wonder flower with being stamped the way it is supposed to be. So everything is aligned and fairly tidy. A nice little for you on there, quick ribbon, and you have a pretty quick and easy, pretty design. And that's with some of those yellow inks. If you then go into a bit more of a watercolor effect, you can really get some blended looks. And here I've got 2 colors on one stamp. This is not layering anything at all. It's just working those watercolors on there. And then getting into our pretty purples. Here it is with misting with water, but still also a bit more of that freeform effect, and really using a lot of those beautiful leaves and the foliage. And then our final card with the beautiful turquoise and galactic stream. Just love those colors. I love how these all turned out so easily. Like now one of my favorite stamp sets. The one that I had in the back of all of my stamp sets, rediscovered. Maybe you have a watercolor stamp set in yours as well, but if not, this is the Watercolor Wonders. I do suggest also when you take a look at the Altenew website, look at the product page for this, because there are a lot of really great examples, and because it's an older stamp set, there are a lot of people who've done projects with it, so it gives you even more inspiration. And then our other stamp set that we were working with today, the gradient stripes with that big, beautiful, crisp, stripy background, and then also lots of our fun, cool words down here. really is a treasure trove with all of these cool sentiments and words to be built around the word happy. Okay, so we have just another minute or two. If you want to be in the running for $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store, then do be sure to share the video while we are still live, and make sure that you post down below to let Orem know that you have shared. Let us know how you shared, and then she can choose a lucky winner when we are all done. One other thing I do want to show you. Okay, two other things I want to show you. I mentioned the stripe effect here. So I was able to quickly, this afternoon, I couldn't stop with the stamp set combo. With the stripes, I just popped them down at an angle and then added the sentiment on here. I think this is a fun way just to get a nice, quick and easy watercolor look. I did do some spattering with some black ink on there. That's with the jet black dye ink. And then this one isn't done yet, but when I did the stripes, I cut them with a paper trimmer, just into some smaller strips, added some of the foliage, and then again, another little stamp sentiment on there. So I think you will be inspired when you get your hands on this stamp set, and especially the two of them together just have so many possibilities. So hopefully you have enjoyed crafting along with me this evening. I do thank you again for joining me, and a massive thanks as always to Orem for being behind the badge and helping us out today. So we're going to wrap things up for this evening. One more second to post down below that you've shared. Let us know how, and Orem will choose a lucky winner. So good luck to everybody. Thank you so very, very much for joining me today. We will be back again. There are lives on YouTube. There are lives on Facebook. There are video classes. Altenew has a ton of different resources for you. So thanks again very much for joining me, and I will see you again next time. Take care, everybody.